when you turn 18 and you leave the house, you can't blame your parents anymore. I thought that was kind of funny. But I will say this, if you can start looking at your parents and everything that's happened, that it's a program, that they also were programmed. So that's number one, right? The other thing is don't look at it that way. Start being a student of your own life. Start looking at yourself and dissecting and look what's working and what's not working, because that's the only way you're going to, like, if you want to achieve abundance or you want to achieve that perfect woman that you're looking for that complements you, right? The only way you can do it is say, okay, if you have the same scenario happen with women over and over and over again, then you need to look at yourself and say, okay, what is the dynamic that's causing that to happen? And I find that a lot of people, it has to be, you really have to go in and be a scientist and go into the laboratory, and you are the laboratory. And you have to be really honest, but you also have to understand that it's limitless. People limit themselves instead of looking at it as limitless. So you can choose what you want. You just have to know what you want, and then you have to eliminate what's not working. So a good example is if somebody has fear in their life and their mother was fearful, so it passed down to them. So everything, 99% of everything they think is going to happen, but it never happens, but they have the fear about it. If they only change the fear of being fearful about a German Shepherd, and they don't change the fear in everything else they are fearful for, they're never going to expand or get out of that paradigm and turn into that new life. But if they change fear into confidence, safety, and security in every area of their life, and they're only fearful when they're being chased by a lion or a dark alley.
Welcome to another episode coming at you from ChooseYourRelationships.com, author of Love Can't Wait, which can be found on Amazon.com. So today I have another special guest. She's a creator of Reprogram Yourself, a board-certified NLP life coach. She teaches you how to recognize your program imprints, blocks, or alignments, and provides you with the tools to discard what no longer serves you to a healthy, prosperous, and wealthy life. She believes that success in every area of your life is real and obtainable. The power is in your hands. My special guest today is Janet Schmidt. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
So where are you from originally?
Originally, I grew up in Laramie, Wyoming, and Steamboat, Colorado.
Wow. So,
but I've lived in 10 different states, so I can say that.
Okay, that's cool. So did you grow up and say, hey, I always wanted to get into studying about epigenetics, or, how did this come about? Or did you learn from somebody else?
No, I learned when I was a young child. I grew up on a ranch pretty much, and so I tried the laying of hands on the horses and the cows and whatnot. So I kind of explored with energy work first. And I did go into the mainstream like everybody else does, but I always was fascinated by how we can change our environment, how we can change ourselves through energy. But then I started dabbling in that our mind has to have something to do with that too. So that kind of took me into the work of combining energy work with like epigenetics. So the best way I can describe this is quantum physics says everything's energy, right?
Yeah.
Einstein said everything's energy and that's all there is to it. Match the frequency of the reality that you wish for, and you can't help but bring it to you. That's not philosophy, that's physics. Now, to me, that's the energy work, right? And then epigenetics just says that it's the imprinting from our ancestors passed down to us. And then our parents pass it to us from 0 to 8. And then it's our friends, it's society, and anything catastrophic that happens to us that dictates our belief systems, our behaviors, our traits, our thoughts, right? And so I kind of started looking at that. And then I did have something that happened in my life about 15 years ago that really drove me into perfecting and understanding how someone can change every aspect of their life by changing their subconscious, conscious, and superconscious mind, or bringing yourself into whole brain state. And so I can tell you this story about a woman who came into a lot of money. She was a really nice woman, and she had a lot of, she always helped the underserved, the underdog in school when she was a little kid. But she wanted to help the underserved since she had all this money and she had the ability to do it. So she started giving money out to individuals and, nonprofits alike. And before long, people were attaching to her for money. As time went on, her financial advisor, who was with an internationally known firm, actually makes an investment outside the context and loses almost all of her money.
Oh, God.
And at that point, she finds herself in arbitration. Now, the whole time she's in arbitration, all she's thinking is, I'm going to lose this money. I'm going to lose this money. She never once thought she wasn't going to win. She just kept thinking, I'm going to lose this money. Well, in the end, the financial advisor was disbarred. The partner got fined. The company got fined. And sure enough, she only got 10% of what she lost. Now, we can chalk that up to the quantum physics part, right? Because she put the energy out there, she wasn't going to get the money. So she brought that reality to her. Okay. But what was the epigenetics background from that? She came from 8 generations of ministers who signed up to be economically challenged, who signed up to give their last pennies to the underserved and never had any money to manage. Now, whereas that was honorable for them, that's not what she signed up for, right? In this lifetime. And so that began the process of understanding and finding the techniques to change the coding or the imprinting in her so that now she can earn the money, keep the money, share it if she wants, and all of that. And how do I know? There are 4 techniques that work. And how do I know this? And how did I discover it? Because I'm that woman. I'm the person that happened to.
Gotcha.
So that's when I knew there was more than just energy that had to do with this. You have to bring your left brain and your right brain into a whole brain state on what you want in order to achieve it.
So how do you know the programming of the people around you, your friends, your family?
Oh, we're all programmed. We're all programmed.
How do you know if their programming is in alignment with yours to help you to become a better person and vice versa, though?
I think for you, it's one is understanding that everybody around you is programmed.
Yeah.
That gives you the edge. That gives you the emotional intelligence to create the strategy to actually work with everyone around you. Because if you don't recognize, oh, they grew up this way and I grew up this way, you're going to constantly clash. But if you have that understanding, then wow, you're ahead of the game. Yeah.
The reason why I asked that, because, there's, unfortunately, we don't get to pick our parents, No,
we do.
So
I say that too. My poor children.
I truly believe that most parents, they did the best they could, with the circumstances and what happened and whatever. We can go all day and say, hey, my parents was this, they grew up like that, they didn't have this, they didn't, I think everybody can point out at least one thing that their parents might have did or didn't do. We can harp on that all day long. But at the end of the day, I believe most parents did the best they could, and we don't get to pick our parents, So, and the reason why I say that, because a lot of people will use that as an excuse why they can't, be prosperous, why they can't have good relationships, and, of course, there's always some people are just going to find a way regardless. But then there's a lot of people that, they kind of be like, yo, I only had one dad. I only had my dad. My mom was gone. So they just give up and throw in the towel, you know?
I understand what you're saying. I heard somebody say recently that when you turn 18 and you leave the house, you can't blame your parents anymore. I thought that was kind of funny. But I will say this, if you can start looking at your parents and everything that's happened, that it's a program, that they also were programmed. So that's number one, right? The other thing is don't look at it that way. Start being a student of your own life. Start looking at yourself and dissecting and look what's working and what's not working, because that's the only way you're going to, like, if you want to achieve abundance or you want to achieve that perfect woman that you're looking for that complements you, right? The only way you can do it is say, okay, if you have the same scenario happen with women over and over and over again, then you need to look at yourself and say, okay, what is the dynamic that's causing that to happen? And I find that a lot of people, it has to be, you really have to go in and be a scientist and go into the laboratory, and you are the laboratory. And you have to be really honest, but you also have to understand that it's limitless. People limit themselves instead of looking at it as limitless. So you can choose what you want. You just have to know what you want, and then you have to eliminate what's not working. So a good example is if somebody has fear in their life and their mother was fearful, so it passed down to them. So everything, 99% of everything they think is going to happen, but it never happens, but they have the fear about it. If they only change the fear of being fearful about a German Shepherd, and they don't change the fear in everything else they are fearful for, they're never going to expand or get out of that paradigm and turn into that new life. But if they change fear into confidence, safety, and security in every area of their life, and they're only fearful when they're being chased by a lion or a dark alley, then they have now shifted their whole paradigm, because they're no longer fearful. They're in a whole different state. And when you enter that whole different state, you open up different possibilities, both financially, personally, professionally, every which way. It just automatically shifts the minute you shift that.
Yeah, I always say, man, anything is possible. You just have to be aware of it. You have to be aware that, just because you came from one place, that doesn't mean, hey, you're stuck, you're trapped.
No.
No. So tell everybody, what's the definition of epigenetics?
Well, for me, I'm going to talk in its broad sense. So if there's any scientists out there, because they're going to look at this, and I'm talking in a broad sense, it literally is the imprinting that's passed down from your ancestors. All the fear, all of those things are coded, and they go down to your parents. That's why things are repeated over and over again. Yeah. That's why, I even look at my ancestors. My father had 7 brothers. Out of the 7 brothers, 5 were ministers. His father was a minister. Yeah. Out of all of them, they had sons. They were ministers. It wasn't until my family, where my mother said my brothers weren't going to be ministers, that it skipped a generation.
Yeah.
So it's kind of imprinted in what you're going to do. It's imprinted in your thoughts. It's imprinted in your feelings, your emotions, your traditions. I say to people, and any religious faith that you have, is it really you, or is it because it's been passed down to you? And I'm not saying it's not you, but I'm saying, check out, is this you? Because it could have just been passed down to you. Because I can honestly say for myself, I came from 8 generations of Lutheran ministers. That was passed down to me. I didn't know anything else until I went to college and studied about Buddhism and everything else that I could get my hands on to understand what else was out there. Because then you can decide what is you and what's not you.
Yeah, if I look back at my parents, there's some things that they did that I do to this day, and I'd be like, oh, wait a minute, that's my mom used to do that. And my grandmother used to do that. So
of it's lovely. I mean, this is the thing. Some of these things that we get are really, really lovely.
Yeah.
And so you don't want to negate what's really lovely that we've gotten, but there's also certain things, as I said, being economically challenged as my family was, okay? We were rich with love, but economically challenged, that was passed down into my imprinting. So I'm giving everything away to help the underserved because that's what was imprinted in me, where you can give and still keep for yourself.
Yeah.
Because you have that ingrained in you.
Yeah.
And I would say this to your viewers. I use this with some of my clients who are looking for that certain person. Okay. And I say, in order to attract the person that you want, you have to emulate the same things that person that you want has. And that means that you do have to examine yourself and take a really close inventory. And then you can change those things. You really can through different techniques. You can change them. Yeah.
Yeah, that's hard for a lot of people. Woo! Oh my God.
Well,
I mean, go ahead.
My hope is that really that people take a look at it, because it's not that hard when you really start saying, if you want somebody that has a certain part of them, like for instance, if you want somebody who's affluent, who has a lot of money, it doesn't mean that you have to have a lot of money, but it does mean that you have to feel affluent in your life.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and so there are certain values that like really help you in your life to have.
Yeah.
And you can reprogram for that.
But how do people kind of shift their mind and reprogram themselves, you know?
Well, as I said, the first goal is I can just listen to somebody and watch their body language, because I will say this to your viewers, that if they're with people, start looking at them while they're talking to you, because their language, what you're hearing, is only 7% of what they're communicating to you. The rest is their inflection of their voice, their hands, their body. Because I could say to you, help me with the fundraiser, and you could say, sure, but you could look like a deer caught in the headlights. And that means that you said yes to me, but the rest of you were saying no to me. And so really, I tell people, especially people dating, pay attention to the cues that somebody's giving you, because some people are too polite. Some people don't say things. Watch the body language. Watch the 93% that's not speaking to you, because that will help you out a lot. But I think looking at what you want and what's working, and the minute you find out what's not working, like do a checklist. What's working for you? What's working in your life? Write everything that's working for your life on one side. Write what's not. And then focus on the ones that, put the opposite on the ones that are not. If it's wanting more money, then put increased prosperity. So you get rid of the negative, and because you don't want to have any fear or focus on that. And so then through techniques like, I use neurolinguistic programming to get rid of the imprinting. So I take you through a timeline. So I'll ask you this right now. I want to take you through a timeline. So if I asked you about something that happened to you when you were 10, right? Okay, so close your eyes and think, where does that fall? Does that fall to your left, or does that fall to your right, behind you? Where does that incident or that thing that happened to you at 10 land?
Right.
Okay, so that tells you that if it falls to your right, that's your past. So your future is to your left, right? Is that what you? So when you're looking at things, we have timelines. Whether it's something that even hasn't even happened in our future yet, we still have that, because we have images in our mind of what we want to happen in the future. And then we have our past. So understanding that we have a timeline is really important. So I take people through their timeline, and I can find out where it first happened that they had fear, or where they first had the trauma. And we can remove those feelings. We can remove the imprinting of it through that. And I use what also is called eye movement integration, which is a way to desensitize. I don't know if, have you heard of that before? Eye movement integration?
Yeah.
It desensitizes the brain. So it takes like the trauma and it desensitizes the feeling from the actual visual part of it. And I use those to remove it. And then I bring in Psyche, which is a way that you cross the left cortex with the right cortex and bring it into a whole brain state on the new goal. So if the new goal is, I am a prosperous person, right? So you're taking out the negative and you're replacing it, I am a prosperous person. Now your left and right brain are on a whole brain state on that. And actually, eye movement integration does bring you in healing in a whole brain state, because your the reason why most people don't heal from trauma is because the left and right brain aren't in an agreement on how to heal.
Yeah.
Because you got to remember, your left brain is the logical part and your right brain is your creative part. And so they clash a lot. And that's why people have a hard time achieving what they want to achieve, because they're not in a whole brain state.
Yeah. What's the importance of the white brain state? What explain that.
A whole brain state?
Yeah.
Because it's like I said, most of the time we're fighting ourselves, our subconscious mind and our conscious mind. The subconscious mind is taking over. It's running our whole body 95% of the time. The commander of the ship really is our conscious mind, but it's only active 5% of the time. So I think I explained this way, aside from the whole brain state, the left and right, it's bringing the subconscious and the conscious mind in agreement on what you want, the new thing that you want. So it's not just the subconscious mind and autopilot, it's the commander coming down saying, okay, now we're going to do this. Now you go, subconscious, because now we're in agreement. You can go.
Yeah, this is the reason why a lot of people are afraid of rejection. You know, they can't get past it because it's like they automatically think what happened last week or 6 months ago or, years ago, I think. And they, I think there's a lot of fear when it comes to that as well,
Fear is the reason why I brought fear up before is because fear is a huge component that I deal with almost everybody. Everybody's fearful of something. And if you can release the fear in your life, wow, your trajectory is just going to go soaring. And that's why I used it, because fear, if you can release fear in every part of your life and just embrace and go on, you can conquer anything.
Why does it seem like the older we get, it's less fear versus like when we're young? Is it because we were thinking too much, or what do you think it is?
To be honest, I think I do think, at least I can speak for what I see. And for what I see is society has really instilled fear in us. Whether it's religion, whether it's this, whether it's that, it doesn't matter. There is so much fear going on instead of love. And I know that's really corny to say, but if we came from a more harmonious or peaceful or loving space, I mean, one of the first goal balances for Psyche that I usually put in my clients is, I am unconditional love in me, as me, and through me. Think about that. I am unconditional love in me, as me, and through me. So you're unconditional love in you, as you, and through you. And that's what you're pushing out. And that gets rid of fear when you put it. You can't have fear if you have love. You just can't. You can't.
Yeah. I had somebody on 2 weeks ago, and he wrote a book, and it's all about loving yourself.
Oh,
And
yeah.
he basically said the same thing you said. He said, hey, if you love yourself enough, you won't let the fear of things hold you back. You would find a way to push through. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go
Yeah.
ahead.
It's a really, the first thing I work with is self-esteem, because if you really love yourself unconditionally, well, I don't call it selfishness. When we talk about selfishness, there's self-centered and there's selfishness. Selfishness is loving yourself unconditionally. The good parts, the bad parts, every part of you, that's selfishness. It's just to love yourself unconditionally. Self-centeredness is always making it all about you all the time. That's when you go out in the world. But selfishness inside you, that's for you to love that being that's in there, that raw person, all the good bits, all the bad bits, all the middle bits. Because when you can love all parts, then you can be unconditional love in you, as you, and through you. And you'll eliminate fear.
Yeah. So how do you ever meet people and they say, hey, you know what? I completely agree with everything you say. I'm in alignment with everything you say, or at least a work in progress, I should say, right? But hey, I have a spouse. They're not really on board. They're not really thinking the way I'm thinking. Do you meet couples that's like that, or people?
I have had couples like that, and this is the thing that I say. I say, as they go through the process, when someone comes to me and we start changing things, I always say, when they want to explore actually doing a shift. So you're basically doing paradigm shifts. So as you're making your shift from fear to faith, from fear to security and safety and confidence, as you're going through that shift, your partner is going to go through the shift, even if they're not in agreement with what you're doing.
Yeah.
And the reason why is because, and this goes into a little deeper than what I thought we were going to go into, but if you have a partner, they're part of your DNA, because they're part in your, they're in your morphic field. They're in there. So when you start shifting, and when you make these shifts, by the way, your consciousness is elevating. So that's the wonderful thing about looking at yourself and saying, I want to change that about myself. You're actually elevating yourself in consciousness. And as you do that, your partner can't help but elevate in consciousness, because they're in your morphic field. They're part of your DNA somewhat. Same thing happens with children. I worked with a CEO down in Houston, and she said, I don't believe it. She did 8 sessions with me. She said, I don't believe it. My son, who's 11 years old, she said he decided he wasn't going to try out for the baseball team because he didn't think he was good enough. But all his friends went and tried out. They made it, but he went to the track team. And normally he would have come home and thrown a tantrum. And he said, well, lesson well learned. And she said, I'm so grateful, because when she started shifting, he started shifting. And so all the people around you start to shift when you decide to change certain parts of you. I mean, this is also why, if you think about it, as you grow and you expand, you know how some friends fall away and new friends come in and that sort of thing? That's because you're elevating in your level of consciousness, and some can handle it and some can't.
Yeah. What if I'll give you I'll use me an example. I 10 years ago I moved to Atlanta, right? And recently I moved back to North Carolina like 6 months ago. But during that 10 years, I had friends in North Carolina. I kept in contact. I visited whenever, as much as I could or whatever, right? But I noticed that some of my friends are they're not the same. Or maybe the relationship has changed, either or. So what do you think about that? Because when I moved back, you know, we still talk the same,
Right.
but the dynamic is not the way it used to be. So I didn't have a problem with it, but I was like, oh, okay, yeah.
Well, I call it, it's a change in consciousness. And so as we grow and we change, and you had experiences they didn't have,
Yeah.
and they had experiences you didn't have.
Yeah.
And so depending on how those log in is going to decide our friendships and how we move forward. And that's why I literally tell people, especially people who aren't dating or want to date, who come to me because they're trying to, change up a lot of things. I'll tell them, don't date until you're done. Don't date until you've finished your sessions with me, because you won't be the same person you are now when you go out, because you're going to be in the whole brain state in the goals that you wish. And I had one client, because she said, I want to do eight times. I said, okay, great, 8 times. So during the 8 times, do not date. So she tried after the 5th time. She said, oh, she saw me on the 6th time. She goes, you were so right. I'm just so different than what I was before. And I said, yes, because you're elevating, because you're saying, I'm no longer fearful. I'm safety, confidence, and security now. So I'm good. I'm solid. I go out and so you're walking different because you're solid. You attract different people because you're no longer fearful, where you'd attract different types of things. You don't attract that now. Or the circumstance ends up differently. And this happens even in our general growth.
Yeah.
I would also say that usually when that happens, of what you're talking about, you probably did what they call a quantum leap. And a quantum, I don't know if you've ever, if anybody's curious, pick up a book called U Squared by Pritchett. His name is Pritchett. And it's only 36 pages, but it does talk about what a quantum jump is, so people can understand it more. And Cynthia Sue Larson also has a very good book a couple books about it. But it's when we literally drastically change from fear to safety, security, and confidence, and you finally make that shift really fast, all of a sudden you will notice things you never noticed before. You'll say, wait, that wasn't there before. Or maybe that was there before. Or no, that wasn't. And it's when you do a quantum jump. It's quite fun. And
yeah,
we all quantum jump, but we don't know.
I've probably done that twice in 15 years.
Oh, really? You've probably done it more than that, I guarantee you, because most people do it when they don't know it. But when you really understand it and you recognize that you're doing it, it's fun. Yeah.
So what do you say to people when they say, hey, I got married to this person and this person changed? I don't like that they change. What do you say when they say that?
I have to say, I haven't had that yet.
Oh, okay. That's good.
But what I would say to them is focus on yourself. Focus on yourself first, and them next.
Yeah.
Because it's more about you first and then them. Because I guarantee you, as somebody works and starts changing themselves, the other person's going to too. It's inevitable. It just happens. And whether it's, and I will say this, whether you end up staying together or you don't, most of the time, in my experience, especially people in relationships, most of the time, the people both shift together. The person who's doing the work is shifting the other person. And I've had that even happen with, I had a couple women who were roommates, and one roommate came to me, and after 4 times, her other roommate came, and she said, I figured if you could shift her that much, I should be seeing you. And it's really about shifting yourself. And so what I really want to do is impress upon people, there are 4 techniques, at least 4 techniques that you can use to shift anything you want to shift. And one is near-linguistic programming, to use that first. And eye movement integration is a really good one to use too, because again, if you have a lot of trauma in your life, it clears it out. And then I do use theta healing with people who are good meditators, because that is a good way for you both to get into a theta state, because the facilitator gets in it too. And it's really easy for me to go in and remove things on a quantum level, because I do quantum healing too. And that's a really easy way to do it. But then I come in with Psych-K and I work with the client, and I tell anybody, find a Psych-K practitioner. They'll work with you and they will create goal balances. They call them goal balances of what you want to achieve. So if you want to be, I have ultimate abundance in my life. If you want that, I have ultimate abundance. You can balance for that and get your left and right brain into a whole brain state, so that you do bring it to you. It brings it to you instead of you pushing it away, because you change your belief system. That's what we're doing. We're changing our belief system, because our belief system basically runs everything about us. But once you start getting into a whole brain state and creating a new belief system, you change your life. And that's why I say you can change any area of your life. You just have to choose it. And that's why I want everybody to know the techniques that are out there that can help remove them, and the ones that can help put the new belief in place.
Yeah, I always looked at it like, you know, we're not going to stay the same. Either people used to say, either you're growing or you're dying. You know, so I always looked at it like, if I know I'm not going to, if I know I'm going to grow, why not take charge of it? Why not be like, hey, I want to do this, I want to do that. Yep. Why be passive about it? You know. And plus, if you're waiting for everybody else around you to change, you're gonna be waiting for a long time. I always look at it like it's good to lead by example.
Well, it is, and you'll get more people curious. They'll say, "Well, what happened? If he can do that, why can't I do that?" And that's the whole thing. But even bigger than that is for people to live the life they want to live.
Yeah.
And it is possible to live the life you want to live. And that's what drove me to create Reprogram. It's like quantum integrative techniques that you bring in together that will solidify what you want to achieve in your life. And it's possible in any area of your life. You can pick any area, and I guarantee you can even be a great athlete. And you could say, I want to be an Olympic athlete. Well, that doesn't mean you don't have to practice, but what if subconsciously you don't deep down inside believe that? You could say it to me, but I could test you and figure out that you don't. And if you don't, you can instill the whole brain state, the left and right brain in agreement, or your subconscious and conscious mind in agreement. And once you have that and you keep practicing as an athlete, I guarantee you're going to be in the Olympic trials.
Yeah. So let's talk about your program and what it's all about, and how did it come about?
Well, it came about, as I said, I used myself as the guinea pig because of what had happened to me. I knew that there had to be more to it. And so I still study. I'm continuously studying what's new out there, what somebody's doing, what's working, what's not working. One of the new things that I do now is I tell people, have goal balances. And I say this, when you write a goal balance, it has to be in the present tense. So I have ultimate abundance, or I have this, or I am, so that it's always in the present, like you already have it, right? If you record that, because everybody has a phone that records, if you wrote down 10 things a day that you wanted to achieve, right? But you already wrote down that you have it. And you listen to that twice a day, once in the morning, once at night. I guarantee you, I'd love to talk to people after 1 month and them tell me, because it's going to change you. And what I found is by you listening to your own voice, it's powerful than listening to anyone else's voice. It's really, really
Yeah.
powerful. So that was a recent technique that I really use with my clients because it's really, really powerful to listen to your own self. But I just kept trying different techniques to see how I could easily move out the old belief, how I can move it out, right? And clear it out. And then how I could bring in another technique that could bring it into a whole brain state or the subconscious and conscious mind together. What were the best techniques that could do that, that also were available to people so that people could find practitioners or find people who could do this all over the world. Now, I will say there's fewer Psyche facilitators out there. There's not as many. I think there's only 40 teachers, 40 certified teachers all over the world. I think there's only 40, but there's a lot of practitioners. So, but I would say I know there's some in the Carolinas, I know for a fact, but I would say find them and implement this because it is the fastest way to reprogram yourself and to move along. But at a minimum, do what I'm talking about recording yourself. Pick 10 things that you really like. I have ultimate abundance. When we say ultimate abundance, and I want people to understand the significance of ultimate abundance, is that when you have that, that means that you have great health, you have great love, and you have great wealth.
Yeah, that's great.
And great success. So that's why I always use ultimate abundance, because when you're saying that, that's the whole parameter. It covers everything.
Yeah.
I'm one of those people who I love when I write balances for when I'm working with a client. One client said, "You cover all the bases." I said, "Yeah," because if I'm going to put it in, I want it solid. I want that in there.
Yeah. Now that you said as far as listening to your voice,
yeah.
When I listen to a lot of audio books or whatever in my car. I did that for like 10 years. I stopped listening to music when I got in my car when I was driving. So that definitely works. But I've noticed when I'm home and once I'm done recording and when I listen to a playback of myself, there's something that's different about my voice compared to someone else. So you're right about that.
It resonates with your soul, your very soul. Because I mean, if we really want to get into that, because I also deal in quantum, the quantum world and quantum healing. But when we're talking about our soul, our very soul, it attunes to the voice, our tune. Yeah. And so what is more powerful than your own voice? There is no other voice more powerful than your own. And so I started doing that. It's funny because in Napoleon Hill's book, have you ever read it?
Yeah, Think and Grow Rich.
Yeah, Think and Grow Rich.
Yeah.
In there, they have a couple different exercises people can actually record in their own voice.
Okay.
And so that's a tip too. If you're looking for wealth, go through Napoleon Hill's book. And when he has certain exercises or certain things that he says, repeat to yourself, tape it.
Yeah.
Record it and then play it back to yourself.
Yeah.
Very, very, very powerful.
Yes. Yeah. And even some things that because sometimes I go live on YouTube and some things I say and I go listen to the playback and I say, hey, I can't believe I said that. I don't know. I don't understand where it came from in the moment. It was a good thing, but I don't understand where I can't make sense of it once I go back and listen to the playback.
You want me to tell you?
Yeah.
It's naturally downloaded in you from your higher consciousness.
Okay.
It's naturally, it's at a moment, and I'm going to tell you this, it's at a moment where you're relaxed and you're actually free.
Yeah.
And so when you're there, if you think about when it happened, you were relaxed, you were free, and you were just in the moment of flowing it out. And when you're in that moment, that's when your higher consciousness, your higher self will just flow through you and give to your audience what they need to hear.
Yeah. And same thing with my books. When I wrote my books, same thing. Some of the stuff I was writing, I didn't like, I was just flowing.
Yeah. It's a wonderful feeling. When people are first starting to connect, when I have people first starting to connect to their higher self because they're not aware, I'll say, why don't you write on a piece of paper, what is it that I need to know today? And then just take like 5 deep breaths in, and then sit down and don't argue. Just write whatever your hand's starting to write, because that's your higher self talking to you. Or you could have a problem and write, what do I do about this problem the night before? Get up in the morning, and before you do anything, before your mind starts thinking about everything else, sit down, read it, write down whatever it's set, write down whatever's coming to your mind. I've had so many clients when I've told them to do that, they go, the solution was so much easier than what I was making it to be. I'm like, yes, because you're not arguing up here. It's just kind of going in.
Yeah.
So it's a beautiful thing. So that's wonderful for you, because it's clear that you have a big flow of your higher self coming through you on a consistent basis. And that's beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah.
People tend to block it so much. They tend to we try to rationalize everything instead of just kind of sitting back and letting part of life happen to us.
Yeah, I think people kind of try to plan too much. You know, they want like a step-by-step script on, hey, I want to say this in this given moment. I want to say that. I'm like, I can't do that. That's no.
No, you can have I always say to people, have the goal of what you see, like have the end result of what you want to see it look like. Yeah. And then you're right here, and all you do is what you can do right now, the first step. Don't worry about all the steps in between, because they'll come up as they're supposed to come up to get you. But always have your thought process on that end goal. I mean, I actually go to bed thinking about the end goal of something I want, like even every detail of it. For 3 nights in a row, I'll think of it right before I go to sleep.
Exactly.
And I won't worry about the in between, the little bits.
Exactly.
The little bits.
Yeah. So if people wanted to follow you and work with you, where would they go?
Well, they can go to my website's janetelaneschmidt.com. Okay. And I am on Instagram, but I'm not a big Instagrammer. So I go in spurts. I go when it moves me and I have something to say. And so I gave everyone on your show a tip, because my next video that I'm going to be putting on is about listening to your own voice, taping your voice, because it is magic. It is going to be the magic that actually aids you, heals you, and catapults you forward. And that's you. That is you.
There you have it. Like, share this episode. Tell me what you think below. All links will be found in the show notes. Until next time, we out. Peace.
Yeah, baby.
If you like this video, share this video. And if you want to support my channel, click the thanks tab and leave me a donation. 2, 5, 10, 50. Just click whatever tab you want to donate and leave me a note and let me know how the video helped you. And you click the buy and send tab. Appreciate it.